There is a lot to focus on, especially when you think about the headlines that we're getting about this slow trickle of when we're finally going to get these data releases.
You know, I went and actually counted how many data releases we missed.
Yeah.
It was 43, and that was just the ones I could find. I'm sure I probably missed a couple.
Wild.
So we're going to start to get a trickle of that. They've only confirmed so far 3 or 4 reports that are going to be updated, including the September jobs report, which is supposed to release October 3rd. That will be released November 20th. The October jobs report, which I think we were supposed to get last Friday.
Right.
They have not updated us on when we'll get that. And there's an issue of like whether the data is even going to be complete, that we're only going to get maybe some part of the survey, but not at all. So I'm so confused.
Unclear what the collection efforts actually looked like during the shutdown. So still a lot of questions, even as we get this trickle.
I mean, no one called me during the shutdown.
No,
so how do I know?
I mean, I don't pick up the phone, so I don't know. Well, that's the other question, right?
I know, check your phone.
We've been talking about
20
the
missed calls
quality
from Romaine Bostic.
from Romaine Bostic. We've been talking about quality of data even before the shutdown, so let's keep the conversation going now, because the aftermath of the longest government shutdown in U.S. history is slowly beginning to play out. And here with his perspective is Gene Sperling. He is president of Sperling Economic Strategies, former senior advisor to President Biden, and former national economic advisor to President Clinton and to President Obama. Gene, fantastic to have you with us. So we've been talking about this fog that we're in when it comes to the economic data, the fact that we're not getting it. Now, as we start to get these very delayed releases, a lot of questions about quality, a lot of questions about reliability. And I wonder, in your view, is the fog going to clear at all?
You know, great question. And I don't totally know the answer. So, for example, I was national economic advisor during the last long shutdown in 2013. And at that time as well, the data did not come out on time, but it came out about as many days as the shutdown lasted. Now you have the situation on the jobs numbers where the person in my former job, Kevin Hassett, is suggesting that maybe we will get the payroll and establishment jobs, but maybe we will never get the household survey, which tells us what the unemployment rate is going to be. And I do think it's difficult looking at the private data, because if you look at ADP, they tell you that we probably gained 40-some thousand jobs in October. Not great, not horrible. But now they have a new weekly index that suggests by the end of October, we might have actually been losing 10,000 jobs. Now, you heard Chairman Powell say when you're in a fog, you drive slower. And so I think that's why people are not as confident about this cut in December. And then I think the other thing is that, I think the administration has hurt itself by kind of doing things that are essentially stagflationary. So immigration and the tariffs, they're harder than a lot of things for the Fed because they both have negative inflationary effects and they tend to hurt growth at the same time, which makes you have to weigh which is the worst. And again, I think that the tariffs are more likely to keep having inflationary pressures. I think the big retail stores are doing it more slowly, so we haven't had the big boom. But you still have an economy that was projected last January to be at 2% inflation, and it's at 3%, and you don't know what's going to happen with the Supreme Court, and you have a lot of reason to think that big stores are going to continue to gradually raise prices for maybe the next several months.